So the first thing I want to do is to thank those who have been raising the central issue of ventilation in tackling the spread of COVID for over a year now at this stage, in line with the science. Orla Hegarty, John Wenger, Dr. Kim Roberts and the others who are on the expert group on ventilation. They have been very clear and very consistent on this issue, despite the fact that it seems that still the Minister for Health is determined to ignore the expert group on ventilation set up precisely to look into this issue and instead take advice from a group with no expertise on the issue of ventilation. I also want to thank Diana O'Dwyer and the People Before Profit team for their work in helping to prepare this bill and to promote it. The central point, just to explain what the bill does, is it gives workers and students the right to clean air in workplaces, including schools. And it does so by defining sufficient fresh air as air with a CO2 concentration of less than 900 parts per million, where appropriate air filtration devices have not been installed. So again, for those who have followed the science on this question, they'll know that CO2 parts per million acts as a very useful proxy for the potential for COVID to be hanging around in the air. And it provides two routes whereby we can guarantee clean air for workers and for students, either one, through bringing that level down to less than 900 parts per million, i.e. a safe level, or where that's not possible, through the mechanism of filtration, for example, HEPA filters. It provides in circumstances where we go over that level and there isn't appropriate air filtration, well then 24 hours can be given to improve the situation, and where it goes over 1,500 parts per million, well then a workplace could be shut down immediately by the Health and Safety Authority. Ireland has laws setting minimum standards for clean air in chicken coops, but up until now we've had nothing for schools, buses, pubs or offices. For over a year, we have been calling for the government to get serious on ventilation and air quality in the fight against COVID, and the government ignored those calls. In March of this year, the NEFIT Expert Group on Ventilation report made a number of proposals, including recognising the role HEPA filters can play in our schools, particularly in winter months. Again, those calls were ignored by the government. Instead, you preferred to repeat the mantra that schools are safe, as if it was some sort of magical spell from Harry Potter which could prevent COVID from entering classrooms and from hanging around in the air, spreading among the entirely unvaccinated students. So now People Before Profit has done the job for you. We've produced this workplace ventilation bill to finally establish a right to clean air and enforceable standards for schools, pubs, offices and all workplaces. This bill establishes a right to clean air and makes that right tangible and enforceable. 150 years ago, we were fighting pandemics of cholera, typhoid and others. Despite attempt after attempt, it wasn't until the issue of clean water was addressed that those diseases were able to be brought under control. Looking back, it seems obvious to us, but at the time many simply did not realise how polluted water could be the transmission belt for disease. Today, clean air is the modern challenge, as we fight not only COVID, but other SARS and respiratory viruses. If we don't tackle ventilation, if we don't ensure clean air in schools and other workplaces, then we will be doomed to repeat the doom loop of outbreaks and restrictions. But if we put in the investment now, provide HEPA filters for every classroom, enforce CO2 monitors, ventilation across the board, we can put ourselves in a much stronger position to fight this virus and future viruses. The government is reported as having said that they will not be opposing the bill, which obviously we welcome, but they must not leave it sitting on a shelf gathering dust. It also needs to be backed up by funding. We can't provide for funding in an opposition bill. The government needs to follow the example of Germany or Australia in rolling out air filtration. increase funding for the Health and Safety Authority to properly enforce these standards, put HEPA filters into every classroom, into every public building, provide free FFP2 masks to encourage the use of these much more effective masks. I would note that we as TDs are provided with these much better, higher quality masks free of charge, but not teachers, not bartenders, not bus drivers or other frontline workers. We need action now to ensure clean air in schools and workplaces. HEPA filters can help clean the air, especially during colder days when it's simply not possible to have windows wide open all day. The NEFIT expert group said so back in March. The Department of Education acknowledged it in May. The EU and US Centres for Disease Control have been saying it for months. But up to last night, Minister Donnelly was peddling the line on TV that these filters weren't recommended for schools. The Minister for Trampolining seems to think that his training as a management consultant makes him more qualified than all those experts. It's an embarrassment, and the truth is that the Minister has lost confidence of people, even government TDs, even his own Taoiseach it seems. It probably can't be long before he faces. Sure, I'll finish now. I'll leave it there. You're all right. You take 5 minutes and then. Yeah.